think Erika Kirk had anything to do with the husband's death.
Jewish donors, they have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do.
How much longer does Israel let us stay alive, do you think? That's the big question.
Why would they?
What did you say? Is that AI?
What are you saying?
That's Sora?
It's evil. Charlie and I have always been very clear on our stance. Israel, Jewish people.
Erika Kirk is facing a level of public pressure that is getting louder and more intense with every single day that passes, and the latest development has people completely caught off guard. She is now reportedly moving to shut down Theo Von, one of the most unpredictable and most genuinely independent voices in the entire podcasting landscape right now. And people immediately started asking the obvious question: why him specifically? Why now? The answer becomes clear the moment you understand what Theo actually did. Because he did not simply make jokes or take surface-level shots at Erika's public image. He walked directly into the serious territory that most public figures deliberately avoid, started connecting specific dots, and asked the kind of pointed questions that only land hard when they are pointing at something real. But that single move shifted the entire energy surrounding this situation, and the reaction that followed confirmed that something significant had been struck. Here is what makes the specific target of Erika's reported response so revealing.
Yeah, I'm Jewish. I just found it out. Like, I knew my mom's side of the family was Jewish, but she never, said that, yeah, you're actually Jews, and then I verified it. Yeah. And it's crazy.
When comedian Rusty made jokes at Erika's expense and publicly questioned her public persona, the reaction from Erika's side was complete and total silence. Not a statement, not a legal threat, not a coordinated pushback campaign. Nothing. And that silence was not random or accidental. Comedy that stays on the surface, that pokes at image and optics without touching the deeper and more specific questions building around this situation, does not generate the kind of threat that requires a serious response. Erika's team clearly understood that Rusty's jokes were not going to move the needle on the questions that actually matter. But the moment Theo Von stepped into the conversation with a completely different energy and a completely different level of specificity, everything changed instantly. The reaction turned intense, coordinated, and unmistakably urgent. And the contrast between those two responses, silence for jokes, full mobilization for serious questions, tells its own story about which conversations are being treated as genuinely dangerous. Reports are circulating that Erika and Turning Point USA shifted into full damage control mode the moment Theo's involvement in this story became public. The alleged effort involves protecting the organizational image, pushing back against the specific narrative Theo introduced, and attempting to slow the spread of the conversation before it reaches an audience size that becomes impossible to manage. Whether every specific detail of those reports is fully accurate remains to be confirmed, but the broader pattern of a coordinated response effort is visible and documented in the public record of how this situation has developed. Then, Candace Owens stepped publicly and unequivocally behind Theo, backing him without hesitation and hinting strongly that additional information with significant implications could be surfacing soon.
Letting fucking politicians slurp on kids. All of our fucking money goes to Israel and they're using it to fucking genocide people. It's like everybody is scared out of their wits right now. It's like our religious leaders are afraid to speak out, and it's like it's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us.
That public alignment between two of the most persistent and most credible voices raising questions about this entire situation created a combined force that added immediate and substantial new weight to everything already in motion. Now, the specific moment that ignited everything deserves careful and detailed examination, because it was not a long, elaborate accusation or a complex theory requiring significant background knowledge to process. It was one question. During his podcast appearance with Jake Paul, Theo Von looked directly at Jake and asked a single focused question about whether Erika could be involved in what happened to her husband. That question, direct, simple, specific, completely transformed the energy in the room in real time. You could feel the shift happening through the screen as viewers watched it unfold. Jake Paul's reaction is what sent the internet into overdrive, and it sent it there for legitimate reasons. Jake Paul is not someone known for hesitation or discomfort in difficult conversational moments. He built his entire public brand on being bold, unpredictable, willing to go places that make other people nervous, and completely unbothered by controversy. That is his documented public identity across years of content. So when Theo asked that one question, and Jake immediately began shifting in his seat, stumbling over his words, avoiding direct engagement, and at one point literally reaching for mouthwash in what observers described as a desperate attempt to buy a few additional seconds before having to respond. The contrast between that behavior and everything people know about Jake Paul was impossible to miss and impossible to explain away. And when someone with documented comfort in controversial spaces suddenly develops visible discomfort around a specific question about a specific person.
It's all just a cat and mouse game. People are like, we'll elect the Democrats next time. It's like, but it's all the same. Has been happening forever. They haven't been helping anybody forever. They're letting politicians slurp on kids. All of our money goes to Israel and they're using it to genocide people. It's like everybody is scared out of their wits right now. It's like our religious leaders are afraid to speak out, and it's like it's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us, and our religious leaders are talking about It's just like, what is going? I don't know, man.
The most natural and most rational interpretation of that discomfort is that the question is touching something that feels genuinely sensitive and genuinely significant. A simple question that could be answered quickly and confidently with no hesitation is not the kind of question that produces that specific behavioral response in someone with Jake Paul's established track record of fearlessness. The hesitation itself became the data point, and thousands of people watching in real time and in subsequent replays locked onto it immediately. Then, Theo took the same energy and the same directness onto Joe Rogan's platform, and a strikingly similar dynamic emerged. Theo remained consistent, calm and direct in his engagement with the questions he was raising. But Joe, who has himself been willing to engage seriously with the Erika Kirk situation in previous episodes, appeared visibly uncomfortable when Theo pushed into the most specific and most serious territory. Joe seemed to be working actively to redirect the conversation rather than engaging with what Theo was putting forward. He briefly introduced a reference to global tensions involving Iran that felt to observers like a deliberate pivot away from the direction Theo was pushing toward. And that pivot, from someone who has previously shown genuine willingness to ask uncomfortable questions about this specific situation, generated its own wave of analysis and speculation about what specifically had shifted.
Okay, do you think Erika Kirk had anything to do with the husband's death? Let's switch it up. And that's mouthwash, but yeah, keep having some. Do you
I love Listerine, bro.
It's a good stuff. That's a new Listerine green apple.
Bro,
you're funny, dude.
I don't know if you can ask that
You're pretty
question.
funny. Okay.
I don't know. I'll talk about a lot of things, but I don't think I'll talk about Charlie Kirk and his assassination.
This behavioral pattern across two completely separate and high-profile podcast appearances is what people keep returning to as the most significant evidence that Theo is touching something real. Jokes did not produce this reaction. Viral clips did not produce this reaction. Surface-level commentary did not produce this reaction. But one podcaster asking specific and direct questions about specific and serious allegations produced visible discomfort in two separate high-profile figures in two separate settings. That consistency across different people in different contexts is not something that can be easily attributed to coincidence or individual personality. The coordinated response effort that reportedly followed Theo's appearances provides its own confirmation of the impact his questions made. Reports describe a flood of social media activity, involving both automated accounts and real human voices, that appeared almost immediately, and that focused specifically on attacking Theo's credibility, rather than engaging with the substance of what he had raised. The specific angle chosen for the credibility attack was revealing in its own right. Posts began circulating suggesting that Theo was not thinking independently, but was simply amplifying ideas fed to him by Candace Owens, that his association with Candace meant his questions were not his own, and that viewers should discount what he said because of who he spent time with rather than evaluating what he actually said.
I'm confused. I can't believe we went to this war. When we started bombing Iran, I was like, this can't be true.
And what about Lebanon now?
I know. Israel's invaded Lebanon. Yeah.
And it's like, just stop. Like, what do you need?
Well, they're trying to, supposedly, they're trying to stop the terrorists.
Yeah, that's crazy, though, if you're the terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to stop them, stand in front of the mirror and start there.
The strategic logic of that specific attack angle is transparent and deliberate. If you cannot answer the questions being asked, you attack the credibility of the person asking them. If you cannot disprove the specific allegations being raised, you create a narrative that makes the audience question the motivations and independence of the person raising them. This is not an unusual playbook. It is a standard and well-documented information management strategy. But its transparency is exactly what is making it ineffective in this specific situation, because people are noticing the deflection and naming it publicly and loudly. The observation that going after the questioner is not the same as answering the question has become one of the most repeated and most widely shared responses to everything Erika's side has done in the aftermath of Theo's involvement. Our Candace Owens responded to suggestions that Erika should pursue legal action against her critics with a level of confidence and composure that itself became a significant moment in this story. Rather than treating the prospect of legal action as a threat to be avoided, Candace appeared to welcome it. And her reasoning was precise and strategically sharp. She pointed out publicly that if this situation moved into formal legal proceedings, the process that follows would not simply involve two parties making competing public statements and hoping the audience decides in their favor. Legal proceedings require both sides to produce documents, communications, records, and internal materials that are relevant to the dispute. Everything connected to the situation: emails, internal organizational communications, financial records, travel documentation, and anything else deemed relevant to the claims being made becomes subject to examination through a process that neither side controls once it is initiated.
People have always done that also to stay in power.
Oh, yeah.
And even Bill Clinton said that about Netanyahu. Bill Clinton said Netanyahu wants war so he can stay in power.
For sure, dude. People call him the yarmulke Hitler. That's what they call
Who are
him.
these people?
Everybody does.
Which people?
Countless.
People?
Huh?
What are you saying?
What do you mean, people? You talking about
What are you talking about,
black
dog?
folks? What
No!
are you saying?
I don't know
Oh,
what you're saying.
I don't know what you're saying.
I don't know what you're saying.
Okay.
Let's not draw conclusions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
From Candace's perspective, legal action would not silence the questions being raised. It would amplify them dramatically by forcing the production of documentation that currently remains hidden from public view. Discovery in a legal proceeding is not a controlled media environment where narrative management determines what gets seen. It is a formal process, with legal obligations attached that cannot be selectively applied or conveniently redirected. And the prospect of that process is precisely why some observers believe the legal action suggestions are being handled with extreme caution behind the scenes rather than being pursued aggressively, because the cure may be considerably worse than the disease for anyone whose position depends on certain documents staying out of public view. The speed and coordination of the pushback against Theo is itself one of the most discussed elements of how this situation has developed. When a public figure or organization faces organic criticism that spreads gradually through genuine public interest, the response typically develops at a pace that reflects the organic nature of the spread. But what observers documented in the aftermath of Theo's appearances was something that felt considerably more structured. Narratives appearing almost simultaneously across multiple platforms, specific angles being pushed consistently across different accounts, and the overall impression of a response that had been prepared and coordinated rather than improvised in real time. Whether that impression reflects an actual coordinated effort or simply the speed at which information moves in the current digital environment is something that cannot be definitively determined from the outside. But the impression itself has become part of the conversation and is adding to rather than reducing the scrutiny directed at Erika and Turning Point. Theo Vaughn's particular positioning in this story carries its own significance that people keep returning to. His entire public brand has been built on going into conversations that other people avoid, asking the uncomfortable question in the room that everyone is thinking about, but nobody wants to be the first to say out loud.
There is something that I feel is so especially effective when you hear Theo Vaughn speak, because he isn't an expert, because he's not trying to be a genius, and it really is coming from his heart. And he shared some choice words regarding Israel and the war that's happening. I love Theo Vaughn for that, and you can just hear the sincerity in his voice versus the propaganda that they're giving us. I feel the same way. I don't know how people can look at what they did in Gaza and believe that that's godly, that it's prophecy, that it is anything but exactly what Theo says, that it just feels satanic. Why we're not allowed to have perspectives, why we're not allowed to have jobs, why we have to be harassed, why our advertisers have to be called, why we have to be censored from YouTube, why they have to smear us and libel us. And like I said, bravery inspires bravery. And truth is going to...
That is not an occasional choice for Theo. It is his defining professional characteristic, and the reason his audience trusts what he says with the level of engagement they bring to his content. When someone with that specific established identity leans into a topic with the directness he brought to the Erika Kirk questions, the signal it sends to his audience is that this is not casual speculation. This is something worth taking seriously. But the spotlight that comes with that positioning also creates its own specific pressures and vulnerabilities. Every subsequent appearance, every casual comment, every moment of uncertainty in any context now gets examined with the same intensity as his original questions. One unclear response in an unrelated conversation gets pulled into the narrative. One awkward pause gets analyzed for significance. The level of scrutiny that descends on someone once they become the central figure in a viral controversy of this scale is relentless and does not distinguish between moments that are genuinely relevant and moments that simply happen to be captured on camera during the period when attention is maximum. But the broader question that this entire situation keeps pushing toward the surface is one that goes beyond Erika Kirk and Theo Von specifically. It is a question about how narrative control works in real time when a viral situation reaches the scale this one has achieved. When the audience is this engaged, when the number of people analyzing every available piece of information is this large, and when the motivation to find answers is this strong, the traditional mechanisms of narrative management stop functioning with their usual effectiveness. Damage control strategies that work in smaller and more contained media environments break down when the audience is simultaneously watching the strategy being deployed and discussing it openly in real time across every available platform. Erika still has a visible and vocal base of supporters who believe she is being treated with profound unfairness. And those supporters showed up publicly and loudly at a recent event where the energy surrounding her was one of genuine and enthusiastic backing. That support is real and it matters, both as a human reality and as a political and organizational factor that cannot simply be wished away by people on the opposing side of this conversation. But the existence of a loyal support base does not answer the specific questions that keep accumulating around the documented evidence. Supporters defending someone against unfair treatment is one thing. Supporters providing documentation that resolves outstanding questions is something else entirely, and the documentation has not appeared. The timeline keeps getting tighter, and the pressure keeps building from more directions simultaneously. Questions that were being asked by a small community of dedicated online researchers 6 months ago are now being asked on the largest podcasting platforms in the world. Figures who were previously silent on this topic are being drawn into it whether they choose to engage or not. And the audience watching all of this unfold is not shrinking or losing interest. It is growing with every new development and every new voice that enters the conversation, until someone directly involved steps forward with verifiable answers to the specific questions that have been raised. Not deflections, not attacks on the credibility of questioners, not vague assurances that everything is fine. This situation is going to keep expanding into new spaces and reaching new audiences. The question of who speaks next, what they say, and whether what they say finally provides the kind of documentation that resolves rather than deepens the outstanding questions. That is what everyone watching this story most closely is waiting to find out.